Welcome to the very first episode of Lunch with Alex. I'm your host, Alex Chemansky. And today I'm excited to be joined by someone that I deeply respect, both as a professional and as a fellow MBA candidate at UCLA Anderson. Over the past 5 months, we were part of the same learning group, and I've had the privilege of watching her grow, contribute, and truly flourish throughout the program. She is a natural-born leader and a stellar human being. My guest today is Kimberly Ortiz. Kimberly is a double Bruin, having earned her undergraduate degree from UCLA and now returning to campus as an MBA candidate at UCLA Anderson in the FEMBA program class of 2028. Kimberly is a senior manager in educational consulting at Bright Horizons, where she helps students and families across the country navigate college admissions with clarity, ethics, and purpose. She brings over 6 years of experience from higher education admissions, including roles at Harvey College and Caltech, and she's now balancing the impact-driven work with the demands of the number 5 part-time MBA program in the United States. If you listen long enough, you will learn some secrets in the college admissions process for top-tier universities. In today's conversation, we'll explore Kimberly's personal and professional journey, her perspective on leadership and education, and what it really looks like to juggle meaningful work with the intensity of an MBA program. Whether you're interested in business, education, or personal growth, there's a lot to learn from her story. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Alex. This is my first time hearing this introduction, and it means the world, so I appreciate your kind words. Thank you.
Of course. So let's get right into it. Where did you grow up? Where are you from? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly, as Alex shared earlier. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. So I like to say Southern California native. I love it. I've been here my entire life, and I plan on staying here, clearly, even through my professional and undergraduate trajectory. It's been here in Southern California. In particular, I was born and raised in South Los Angeles, so that is something very important to my story, my background, a historically marginalized community, and for me, being in the spaces that I've had the privilege of working, studying, it really means a lot, and the fact that I get to represent South Los Angeles is something very, very important and meaningful to me. So that's where I was born, and that's where I was raised.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I guess, why did you choose UCLA for your undergrad?
Yeah, that's a great question. Why UCLA for my undergrad? As I shared, I was born and raised in LA, so the UC system I could speak for myself, was something that it was always a dream and an aspiration. And a little bit more about me, and in particular, why UCLA. I am a first generation to college student, which that means to myself and my family that I was the first in my family to go to an undergraduate institution and to graduate successfully from an undergraduate institution. I will briefly shout out my twin sister Karen, because I cannot speak about myself without saying that we both did it together, and we were both the first in our family to do it together. So for myself, I will speak for myself here. It was a goal, a dream, my entire life for our family, in order to think about social mobility, to think about opening doors at a family level, but also what it means for my background as a Mexican American woman and the opportunities that it meant to go to school. So for myself, when I got the offer and the big amazing opportunity to decide between what colleges that I wanted to choose, for me, UCLA is a background in the backyard of many ways in my community in LA. So it was a no-brainer. UCLA for us was a huge accomplishment, just even getting an admission there. And as now you know, going through it and graduating through it successfully. But to answer why UCLA and why I chose UCLA as an undergrad, it was, first of all, a big honor to get admitted to UCLA, and at a more personal level, I wanted to stay close to home. As a first generation to college, it was scary to think about going somewhere farther, and I knew UCLA was going to be transformative, open doors for myself and my family, and that's why I chose UCLA. I was excited for the opportunity, the transformation, and that's exactly what I got, and that's why I chose UCLA as an undergrad institution.
Wow. Thank you, Kimberly. I want to zoom in on your relationship with your sister, because I had the opportunity to have coffee before we started recording today with Karen, and I also met her during Femboween. So I guess could you tell us a little bit more about, what that means to you, and what role did she play in your life and you and hers?
Yeah, so for those listening and who don't know Karen is my identical twin sister, and everyone around us, as Alex said, and anyone who knows me and hears me speak about my family, for myself, I say I'm so privileged to have such a great relationship with my sibling. I know that's a privilege, and most importantly, as growing up, my parents, they really taught us the importance of being positive. There will be challenges, there will be things that happen in life, but the number one thing that my parents taught us was be grateful for what you have, and always be positive, always be kind, always show up to the world and give the best that you can. And for me, my sister, when things get hard or when we're going through work and school and I need a reminder, Karen has always been the person next to me who has allowed me to fully be myself and remind me, keep your head up, right? Keep on going, feel everything that you're feeling, but show up and give the best that you can, and bring that kindness and smile to the world. So for me, Karen means someone in my life that will always remind me to be the best that I can in order to give her the best, but also the world the best, and the love and the kindness that the world deserves. So to me, that's what Karen is. I could speak more about her. That's probably another entire podcast session, but Karen, this is shout out to you, hi to you on the other side, and I'm sure she's listening. So I simply want to acknowledge her as well in this story.
Wow. That's heartfelt. I appreciate that. I also want to zoom in on the fact that you are a first generation college student, and you mentioned Mexican American. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So first generation Mexican American. My parents were born in Mexico, so they migrated to the United States, and for my family, so it's my mom, my dad, my older brother, and my twin sister. So for us, my parents made huge sacrifices to be here in the United States and raise a family, and we grew up low income, which is another layer that I share in my story, which is not only first generation to college, but also low income and coming from a marginalized community, and that's what who or the identities that shape who I am and I bring to the table. So for my family, what that meant was that my parents worked incredibly hard, and although the resources were scarce, we always knew that, again, our goal was do really well in school and continue your dreams and your goals, and with a lot of hard work, anything is possible. And for me, my parents, the sacrifices that they made and the decisions that they made at a really young age to leave their country, their home, and leave everything behind for a better future for us, that's what always drives me every single day, because I can't believe that they made those selfless just sacrifices in their lives. So being first generation means a lot to me in many ways, because everything that I do is not just for myself. it's for my parents to honor their sacrifices, their story, and I always want to do the best because they deserve the best, and that's what they gave me. And that I'm sorry, my voice is getting sentimental there. I obviously means a lot. They mean a lot, and their sacrifices, and they know that. I always tell them that. So their sacrifices is what allowed us and my siblings to have opportunities to outstanding education, to be able to have big dreams, and for my parents to say, although the resources are scarce, if you want to go to whatever university, or if you want to study whatever you decide to study, we will always be there. We will always have food for you. We will always cook for you. We will always pick up the phone when you need a reminder that you're not alone. And that's what shapes my first generation identity and Mexican American identity. That's a bit of where it's coming from.
Wow. I love that your parents taught you the value of education and the importance of education. You know, I'm impressed that you got into a top, school, because it's been the top public university, for many years. So I guess, what kind of a student were you in high school, and what kind of sacrifices did you make to get in? Because this must have been like several years of planning, because no one just shows up at UCLA.
Yeah, well, first of all, go Bruins. Yes, top public university. We love UCLA clearly behind us here for those who could watch through online. And that's a great question. A bit about my background in high school trajectory. Karen and I, so my sister and I, we got a scholarship to attend a private high school named Crossroads. It's in Santa Monica, California. For those who are LA or no LA, that means that, as I shared earlier, I grew up in South LA. So what were the sacrifices that I made in high school? Going back to the original importance of education, at that stage in my life, when I look back, we were so young, children, teenagers, and at that point, we decided as a family that we were going to make the sacrifice to get public transportation from South LA all the way to Santa Monica. What did that translate to? That translated to basically 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and a half each way to get from my home in South LA all the way to Santa Monica. So for my sister and I, because we were together this entire process, we would wake up probably at 5 a.m., maybe a little bit earlier, jump on that bus, get to school on time, pack. These memories are coming clearly right now. We would pack little bags with Cheerios, and in the bus we would eat Cheerios. So a lot of sacrifices were made in the sense of, we got this great opportunity. We got 2 scholarships, not just one, to have this outstanding private high school education. And my parents decided this is such a great resource, opportunity, and I'm always grateful to that private education as well. And one of the sacrifices that we made as a family was to say, we're making this commute every single day for 4 years, and that's the sacrifice that we decided to make as a family. And it opened so many doors, being able to have this private education, the amount of the quality of education that we received at Crossroads, the amazing people that we met. My sister's, her husband also attended our high school, fun fact. So there was a lot of great things that came out from that sacrifice, but in high school, that was one of the biggest sacrifices that we made, that commute.
Okay, thank you for sharing. That's really inspiring and truly remarkable. I mean, yeah, it takes hard work, it takes perseverance, it takes never giving up, and it takes a lot of supportive individuals around you, to accomplish tough things. And so let's go into your undergrad a little bit. What was your major? Did you switch majors? Why did you pick your major?
Yeah, so my major was World Arts and Cultures. This is my admission side coming out at this point. But for those who don't know, what World Arts and Cultures means, I applied through a specialty school through UCLA when in undergrad. So as a first generation student, I had no clue what I was doing. Now I know, but for those who don't know, that means that for my first major in undergrad, I applied through the School of Arts and Architecture at UCLA, and that meant that there was a supplemental application that I applied to when I was in high school. I submitted different parts than other typical applicants, so that's a fun fact. Again, I didn't know that was something different. I thought everyone was doing that at that point in high school. But to answer your question, my first major was World Arts and Cultures. Then when I got to UCLA, I thought I wanted to double major in sociology, took sociology 101 and decided this is not it for me. So did not double major in sociology, however, did double major in Chicano studies. So my two majors at UCLA for undergrad were World Arts and Cultures and Chicano studies.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wow, that's great. I love that. Let's see. So you got to your senior year of your undergrad, and did you start applying to jobs right away? Did you take some time off? Where was your head at? Were you trying to use that major to go to work? How did you land your first job, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually like to say that my undergraduate led me to my career, my undergraduate experience. And what that means is that throughout my entire undergraduate experience, I was a student worker at UCLA undergraduate admissions office. And at that point, I did not know that undergraduate admissions was a career. I never grew up hearing this, knowing, right, that undergraduate admissions or general any admissions, graduate, law school, every school, right, has a team of professionals, talented professionals. I love everyone in admissions. And when I was in undergrad, one of my many jobs that I had in undergrad was working in the office of admission at UCLA. And I had various different roles. I worked looking at transcripts and helping process that. I also had a role sitting in the admission office in the front desk and greeting different families and prospective students. So at that point, I knew that I loved what I was doing as a student worker. I also was part of a Latina sorority in undergrad. And the importance of that is that through my sorority, we did a lot of recruitment, we did retention, there was a lot of different skills that all together, being part of the sorority and having leadership positions there, and doing UCLA undergraduate admissions as a student worker, when I started searching for a job in senior year, I was like, what are the skills that I have? Because I don't know what I want to apply to. And I got connected with mentors. I let them know, like, hey, I'm graduating. This is what I know how to do. This is what I love to do. And I will say that this was all because of mentors and amazing people in my life that I had coffee chats with, and they said, wait, I have a friend, or there's offices that my friends or people that I respect work in, and I think you would be really great for undergraduate admissions. And that was the first point in my career, in my life, that I was like, wait, this is a job. Like, I could actually do this full time once I graduate from my undergrad. So senior year, I graduated, I chatted with mentors. They told me about how to apply to other positions outside of UCLA, and that's what I did. I applied to different positions in different admission offices.
So which one did you work at first?
I started working at Caltech, first in Pasadena, California, as an admission officer.
And what was that like?
That was an amazing experience. For those that might not know Caltech, Caltech is located in Pasadena, California. Caltech is a specialized school in STEM. meaning that most students, all students are interested in STEM, so anything in science, technology. And what was it like to work there? I was working with incredibly talented students, staff, faculty who love STEM and who are there because they're hoping to make a change in the world through STEM, through research, by collaborating with one another, by using engineering and physics, and how do they inform one another. So my time there, I was impressed every single day by the amazing talent and the future of what's ahead of us. These students and faculty are working to make positive contributions to the world through STEM. So it was inspiring to be around such amazing students and faculty.
Thank you. So how long were you there, and what happened next?
Yeah, so I was at Caltech for 2 years, and then after Caltech, I moved to the college called Harvey College, another outstanding STEM institution. At this point, you might see a trend in my career. I started at a STEM-focused institution. I left for another STEM-focused institution, and that was more for me to grow in my career. At that point, I pursued an assistant director role, so I went up the ladder in regards to positions as well. And I was looking forward to challenging myself and leaving Caltech, which was a great experience, and I grew so much. But I also wanted to see what another school would look like and what could I learn. So after Caltech, being there 2 years, I left for Harvey College. I was there for 3 years as an assistant director of admission.
You were the assistant director of admission. You worked there for 3 years, and then what happened?
After Harvey College, I decided that I wanted to be more front-facing, and what that means is that I wanted to work directly with families and students at this point in my career and give advice, give guidance and perspective on how to apply to college. So after my 5 years in undergraduate admissions, those 5 years I read applications, I made decisions, put together classes. I decided at that point in my career I wanted to now give that perspective and that advice. So I left Harvey College, and now I am a admissions consultant, college coach at Bright Horizons. So that is my most recent switch in my career, but also a really, really meaningful position that I'm fairly new. I'm going into my 2nd year. I'm learning a lot, but I really, really love the aspect of being a college coach and admissions consultant and being able to work with students and families and give them my perspective and advice from my previous roles before in undergraduate admissions.
And for those of you listening, this is why I invited Kimberly onto the show, because I really want to pick your brain on Bright Horizons, because I haven't heard of the company. So for those, who are listening, could you tell the audience a little bit about, your company and what they do and what makes it different?
Yeah, so Bright Horizons, I always say, especially when I'm speaking to someone that's regionally in LA or anyone in general, when you hear Bright Horizons, you might say, wait, I've seen it, I think I know the name. Bright Horizons, they have a lot of childcare centers. So if you're ever driving around, and now after you hear this podcast, you're going to say, oh wow, that's from Kimberly, she called that out. So one of the things, just very quick overview of it, Bright Horizons focuses on a lot of different aspects of childcare, education. There's a lot of different aspects that I could go into. However, I sit in the branch that's called College Coach. College Coach, who we are or what we do in my role and my team. Now we are around, I want to say 70 educators. There we grow and there's a lot of growth, so I want to say we're at 70 at this point. And what we do is that we have the honor and privilege of working with students and families all across the country. So our college coach, our team, we are a benefit for employees of the companies that pay to work with us.
I see.
And their employee allows or gives the opportunity for the family and the student to jump on phone calls. So we get to talk on a phone call with a family or a student for 45 minutes, and we get to do anything and everything about undergraduate admissions, and I get to do that on my day-to-day with students and families.
So that's the family aspect. I was trying to understand your role, and it's not like someone will, call and pay for services to speak with you. It's the employer, that the full-time employee of a company will have these benefits, but also their family members get taken care of, and they get to talk to you essentially for free, but it's because it's a benefit through the employer.
Correct. And by family, what I mean is it's usually the parent and the child, so their kid.
Okay.
So yes, so that's to answer the question, yes, that's the family aspect of it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. So a little bit off script, but I guess could you share any secrets to like the college admissions? Because someone might be listening. They might be in high school. They might be doing their undergrad. Like, maybe what can you share about the admissions process that maybe you've learned since doing your job that maybe wasn't as intuitive as a high schooler or before you started working?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say, so I don't take an hour talking about advice because I could. Maybe that's another podcast that you'll bring me on here, Alex. But if I answer the question briefly, in order to think about what would be one of the biggest tips that I would give for a high school student, even a graduate student, I think it's very transferable if we're thinking about undergraduate or graduate like us who went through this process recently. I would definitely say that the biggest advice that I would give a student is to tell your story. And what does that mean? This means that a high school student is going to have 4 years to go through high school. There is not a magic formula, right? Every student will look different. Every student will do something different. You heard my story, and my story is very different than yours and similar, right? There could be similarities and differences. But at the end of the day, what we're both going to do is we're going to put a college application together. That's the end goal. And that's in high school and grad program. We did the same thing. What is my number one advice when I talk to students and families? I like to say the college application in the admission world, what we are referring to a lot of the time is what we call the common application. So you're going to put a lot of small pieces of your story and they're going to come together. And my number one advice is to tell that story, right? And instead of thinking about what does the admission officer want to hear about me, because I get that question a lot, I like to say, what do you want to share with the admission officer? What is your story, right? What is that thing that makes you happy? What is your passion? How do you want to change the world? That's what I want to hear. And instead of feeling like you need to tell a story that's going to impress Alex, who's reading my application, or Kimberly, that's actually not true, right? It's the opposite. I always recommend anyone that's listening and has that question for me, it's about, let's talk about you, right? Let's figure out who you are. I know that's a very deep question, but more specifically, what are those passions, interests, curiosities? We could take it in many directions, but at the end of the day, the most important thing here is that we're literally telling your story. And that's what's going to stand out. That is what's authentic. That is what an admission officer is excited to say, I want that student in my class. I want that student to bring that dedication and that love for others, right? That collaboration. That's what's going to be important in this process. Again, this is my very brief answer to lots of other things I would share on this topic, but that would be my biggest one.
Okay. I'm gonna ask one more follow-up question, and then we'll get into like the actual meat and potatoes of what this conversation is designs to be for? And maybe like, can you give us a couple don'ts? Like maybe 2 or 3, do not do this. I see it all the time. It's my pet peeve. You're not gonna get in. It doesn't work. Stop doing this. What are those 3 things?
Number 1, this is important now because AI is an incredibly important topic. Do not copy and paste from AI. That's the biggest, and I would say we get questions about, can I use AI? Should I use AI? And my biggest response, to give you a very straightforward, do not use AI and copy and paste, because an admission officer will know that that is not a student writing, that is not your voice writing. So if I could give you the number 1 at this point in technology, would definitely be, let's not use AI and copy and paste AI, to be specific. Don't copy and paste it. AI could be a tool, of course, and help you in many ways, but it's going to be important to be authentic, as I said, write your story and use AI as a tool, but let's not copy and paste. I would say that's the first do not do. The second do not do, it actually goes back to the biggest advice that I talked about earlier, which is do not approach this application as, what does the admission officer want to hear from me? Again, there's a lot of small pieces in this application. What you should do is to say, what am I really proud of? What am I really good at? What did I do this past 4 years? Put that together. And I would say, if I gave you the do nots, do not think about this process as, what does that person want to hear? Think about you and bring it forward in the application. Those would be my 2 very small tips.
Oh, thank you for sharing your secrets, Kimberly. That's so cool. All right, so this brings us to the present time, right? So you're working, you're the senior manager. How did you know that it was time for you to get an MBA?
How did I know it was time for me to get an MBA? That's a great question. I was ready to be challenged. That's what I like to say. At this point, as you could tell in my trajectory, education is so important to me. I love education. I would talk about education and learn about education as much as I can. However, in my career trajectory, or at a personal and professional level, I took a step back and I said, I could continue this very specific education background, learn in a master's program for education, but I took a step back and I said, how do I want to be challenged? What are the skills that I want to grow? What are the topics that I want to learn? And although at first it was a scary idea, because it's a non-traditional idea for someone like me who's coming heavily from education, I was so excited by the idea and scared, but something that I always say in my life is, if you're not scared, it's probably because you're not doing something right. And what that meant for me was that it was time for me to get uncomfortable and to follow that challenge, and that's what brought me here.
Kimberly, I love your growth mindset. You're motivating me this morning. So, a few follow-up questions. Why UCLA, right? Like, what made you want to be a double Bruin?
Yeah, well, this is a biased answer, of course, because I love UCLA. So I want to acknowledge this bias, but when I decided, what are the programs out there? What am I looking for a program? For UCLA Anderson in particular, I was amazed by everything that I learned as a prospective student, which was transformative leadership. And I was like, wow, like that is so amazing. And that's who I want to be, right? Those are the skills that I want. Those are the people that I want to work with. That's the faculty that I want to be taught by. What is the transformative leader, right? How am I going to get there? And most importantly, I need to learn that, right? I want to be in a classroom. I want to be challenged and learn with my classmates. And when I learned about the programs, the one very, very specific thing about UCLA Anderson is the transformative leadership and the importance of it. And we've learned all about it at this point in the first week that we started our orientation. But to answer your question very shortly there, because I could go longer here, would definitely be UCLA Anderson. What stood out was what they really stand for, which is transformative leadership. And when I learned about this at UCLA Anderson, I was like, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to become, and this is why I chose UCLA Anderson.
Okay, thank you. You know, for the record, I just need the audience to know that Kimberly already is a transformative leader. Okay, in our learning group of 6, she is the leader. Okay, she takes excellent meeting minutes. She sends follow-up emails with action items, and she is a natural born leader. I feel like you were already a leader before you even attended Anderson, and so it is truly an honor to be part of the same learning group. And so for those that might be interested in Anderson and thinking about applying, what was the application process like? Did you do an interview? Did you already know everything that was going to happen? What was it like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in case it's not clear to the audience that's listening, we are doing what is called the fully employed program. So you did say it earlier, we are working full-time and going to school at the same time. So for this process, what was interesting for me was that, again, this is the first time going through the grad program and experience applying for myself. So what was different, or what I discovered through, at least specifically for UCLA Anderson, I would say it's really straightforward. So I remember I started a application online. So I went to the UCLA Anderson website, and something that I really focused on was my essays. We've gone back to authentic, telling your story. And I would say that something that was surprising or an important thing about this process for me was telling my why. Why business school? Why Anderson? And to be really honest, I always get this comment like, wow, well, this process was easy for you because you do this for your career. And actually, it was not. It was really challenging, and I don't think I knew how to tell my why. And I think I didn't believe my why. And I was not confident about my why. And I remember writing my first draft, and of course, getting my sister and her husband's help and letting them know, like, hey, can you review this? And my sister was like, hey, Kimberly, this is not your why. This is not your essay. What are you, like, let's talk about it, right? And I needed that. And I remember in this process, what was surprising and what was challenging, I would say it was the essays, because for advice for those listening, I would say that I think that's very important, to know your why and to be confident about it and to believe it and to put it on paper so others believe it and also know what you want to do. So for me, I would say, to answer the question directly, Alex, one, the essays were the most time commitment for me, and I would say that was the most challenging part for me. Outside of that, everything else was pretty straightforward in regards to filling out the application, activities, resume. There was also letters of recommendation that we had to submit. We just went through this, and I'm having a hard time remembering here. And the last part, I did do the interview. I had an amazing alumni, and I would say it was such an incredible conversation because she made me feel like, if I got admitted at that point, I didn't know, of course, I knew this was going to be my community. I knew it after talking to her because she was so great. So to answer the question, Alex, for you, I would say I did do the interview, went through the essays, every single part of it, but most challenging would be the essays. That would be my experience.
Okay. All right, so now enter Alex into this story, right? So we met at Film Week.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
Yeah.
The Film Week.
Yeah, so Film Week was...
And what is Film Week for those who don't know?
Yeah, great question. So Film Week, It's an entire 5 days. I know I'm speaking for myself. I took 5 days off work. I know most of us did, and some worked as well. But for me, took 5 days off work, and we were required to be on campus together, the entire cohort, for 5 days. We ate breakfast, lunch, dinner, happy hours. We were there 24/7, felt like, but we obviously slept for a few hours. And what it entailed, there was a few things, I would say workshops. There was public speaking. You have the folder here for public speaking.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you, great session. We had a class on leadership that we took for, I want to say 3 out of the 5 days that we were there. Not every day it happened. And then one other really important thing that for those listening, there was a challenge course, and that was really scary to me, but I'm so proud of myself for doing it and getting out of my comfort zone. But Phil Week, that basically what it entails, workshops, there was a leadership class and a challenge course, and the goal of it was for us to get an introduction to one another, but also set the foundation and the tone. I remember leaving that week and I was like, this is it. This is what we signed up for, and we're going. And it really set the tone to start the fall quarter. So that's what Phil Week was, and that's where we met.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So kind of moving right along, we took 2 classes together, managerial economics and data and decisions. So what was that like? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say that my biggest findings from both classes, that I was surprised, but I expected it. I would say that the amount of teamwork that we did was surprising, but in the best way possible. It's not a negative thing. I know surprising has sometimes a negative connotation, so I want to make that clear. And what I mean by that is that I was really nervous coming into both classes, equally nervous for both classes. And again, I was like, wow, I'm going to fail. Like, this is going to be so hard. And I really love the fact that this MBA program, and in particular these 2 classes, for me, instantly, my first quarter, it really made me put into perspective that I cannot do this alone, right? I bring my own perspective, my own talents, and I have 5 other teammates, including Alex, and together we worked really wonderfully together. We got really strong grades together, and the reason why we were successful was because both classes required us to work together. And I think for me, that is such an important lesson that I'm taking not only within these classes, but just in my life, in my professional life, and the fact that the 2 classes, they challenged us, and outside of our incredibly busy work schedule and life schedule, we were meeting basically every day for the last months. We were together every single day. So my takeaway so far from, I would say, this quarter would definitely be that the reason why I think we were successful, or I'm speaking for myself, was because I had to rely and I had to really, really trust, right? And ask for help and give everything that I have to give as well. And together we were successful in both classes. So that would be my biggest takeaway from the classes.
Yeah. For the record, I would not have passed these classes if it weren't for my learning group. And so thank you for your leadership and for rallying up the troops, because we did. And I remember hearing, oh yeah, you're gonna meet every day. And I thought, oh, he's just joking.
Same.
It's gotta be an exaggeration.
Same.
But like leading up to finals and the final project, it was every day.
Yeah.
That's not a joke. Okay. Well, moving into my list here, Kimberly, are there any classes that you're looking forward to taking? Any professors that you're excited to learn more about, and why?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to GAP. I know that's a few years away from us, but I'm looking forward to having the opportunity not only to learn in the classroom, I think this program, again, I've only been here for a quarter, but what I'm really excited is that what Anderson does really well is that we're getting the foundation, we're learning the material, the topics. Of course, that is one of the most important things in our foundation as scholars and professionals. But I'm also really excited for everything that happens outside of the classroom. And GAP is one of the programs that I personally believe that it's going to be this moment that you're like, wow, this is everything I learned in class. And now I get to collaborate with my teammates. And most importantly, I get to solve a problem, give consulting ideas, and work with a company and when you're paired there. So again, I know this is really a long-term goal and something that I'm excited about, but I'm excited to continue to learn in the classroom, but take that somewhere and see that play out in real life. So GAP is something that really excites me and I'm looking forward to.
Wow, me too. That's great. So we talked about academics. Let's talk about some things that maybe you learned outside the classroom. You know, did you make any friends? What were the happy hours like? What did you learn outside of the academic setting?
Yeah, I would say that something that I learned, and it's going to be incredibly important in the next few years for us, is that your classmates are your classmates, friends, but also your connections, right? So I think what I've learned outside of the classroom is, like, for example, today we have to shout out Julia, who's in the background, and you can see her
She's behind the camera, you
hear
guys.
her. But Alex, right? I know I'm using you as an example, but you called and you asked for help, and our teammates raised their hand and they were like, we're here to help,
Yes.
right?
And thank you, Dasha, for connecting me to Julia, because if it weren't for Dasha, then Julia wouldn't be here.
Yeah. So to answer your question there, Alex, I would say that the biggest thing that I've learned outside of the classroom is that we are not only classmates, right? We're all here for the similar reasons. We want to learn, we want to grow, we want to be leaders. But outside of the classroom, we all bring different talents, different perspectives. And if you ask for help, or if you say, I don't know how to do this, can you teach me? Or I'm in this problem and I need someone's talents to help me get there. That's us, right? Figuring out a camera. So all of this to say, Alex, that the biggest lesson that I've learned by going to happy hours, by joining dinners, Secret Santas, we've done it all.
Yes, thank you, Nikki.
Nikki, yes, shout out to Nikki. We've done lots of different activities, and I think the biggest thing that I've learned and I think we'll continue to learn in this program is that that's what we're here for, to help one another, support one another, and give our resources and help, right, that we can to one another. So that's what I'm learning outside of the classroom.
Oh man, this is already so many gold nuggets. So we're almost done here, but just a couple of questions. So, you know, I think I personally hit like a schedule maximum, like a schedule break. There was a part of my last 10 weeks where I hit capacity, emotionally, like physically, energy wise. I called out sick for the first time, I think, in my entire life. So the MBA life is intense. How do you manage and balance, you know, everything that you have going on in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say that I'm still learning, right? Because we're still so new in this process, but I have identified two things that are going to be important for me to move forward. So I would say the first one is making sure that, although exactly what you said, we're at capacity and some things we have to remove from our to-do list, making sure that giving my space to work out is something that I cannot continue to say, like, this is not a priority, right? Or like, I should be using those 30 minutes to do schoolwork or do a meeting at work, which obviously those are my two priorities and at this point in my life, school and work. but giving myself, even if it's 15 minutes, to run around the block really quickly. Maybe I don't have an hour anymore to do my workout, and that's fine, but I'm going to find 15-20 minutes in order to really allow myself that small time frame to just give that time for myself. So I would say that's the first thing that I've identified in the last few months, making sure, and I would say advice for anyone listening, that whatever that looks like for you, that you allow yourself to bring that into your schedule. And then the second thing, which is funny because I tell this to students and I'm telling this to myself, is asking for help. And what that means for me in my life is that I'm very privileged to be so close to my family, have my family near me. I know your family's far, but small things like my mom giving me cooking food and saying, here you go, like, you don't have to worry about lunch today. Like, again, I know that's such a big privilege because I have my family and support and love them, but I would say asking for help, and there's very, very small ways that I've seen it play out in my life, and it's going to be important for me to continue to do that in the next few years in this program.
I'm learning so much from you. Kimberly, if you could describe the UCLA Anderson experience thus far in a few words, what would it be?
In a few words,
like
that's
two
hard.
2 or 3.
2 or 3, yes, because I would 2 or 3 words. I would describe it as transformative. That's the first one. I would describe it as community. That's everything we've talked about today. Transformation, community. And the third one, I'm having a hard time putting it in one word, but I would say confidence. Because I think that in my perspective, I could speak for myself, gaining the confidence, but even within one another and working with one another, seeing the confidence in other people, that they believe in themselves and they believe in you. So if I gave you the last word, would be confidence. That's how I would describe it.
Oh, amazing. So many reasons to get your MBA.
Yes.
Next question I have, Kimberly, is, what's the legacy that you want to leave? Let's say, 3 years from now, we're all graduating at the same time, June of 2028, right? When future Anderson students look back, what's one thing that you want to have contributed to the Anderson community?
Yeah. What I hope to contribute is for other Anderson classmates or future Anderson Bruins that would join our amazing program would definitely be that you belong in a program like UCLA Anderson. That's what I want to, the legacy that I would hope to leave behind, which is you, whoever you are, that you is very wide. Your lived experience, your profession, your name, gender, race, everyone belongs in a place like UCLA Anderson. It takes a lot of hard work, right, to get there and be here, but the legacy that I hope to leave behind is that everyone feels like they belong here, that they can be here, and that they will be successful here. So that's the legacy that I hope to leave behind.
Wow, okay. You're gonna make me cry, Kimberly.
No!
That was awesome.
That's not the goal. That's not the goal today, guys.
Let's see. Next one is, these last two are kind of for you. So is there anyone that you want to thank? Is there anyone that you want to honor that's maybe been a mentor or helped you along, to get you where you are today?
Yeah, that's a hard one because I have a long list of mentors and people that I would honor. But I think on this call, I will honor the amazing women. I've had the privilege of having mentors that have been women and that they have been incredibly motivational, inspiring, and they, when I've said, I don't know if I'm going to get in, I don't know if, right, like questions and concerns, I've been supported and always reminded that I will belong there, I will get there because my hard work and my dedication will get me there. So just to call out a few, I would say Nikki, Raisa, Tira, And again, my list would go on about very, very important mentors in my life. I'll also add Christine, who is one of my newest managers and mentors as well. So a lot of different women in my life that have been important and pivotal for me to be here.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Any final thoughts that you want to leave with the audience listening? The floor is yours.
Yeah. Final thoughts in this space and being able to be here with you all today. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to share my story, and for those listening, thank you as well for taking the time. Do want to start off by thank you all for allowing me to share those perspectives with you all today. And I would say my final thoughts for the day would definitely be that we could do it. I know that's a very maybe cliche thing to say, but what I mean by that is that we are, through this process, we are seeing that we could do it, right? That we're going to graduate in 2028, we're going to be successful in work, life, everything. We're going to do it. So my reminder to anyone listening who is in the program, who wants to apply to the program, or just listening, and maybe you're not interested in the program, that it's possible and that we could do it, and that you could do it, we could do it, it's going to get done. So that would be my final thoughts for today.
All right. Well, Kimberly, thank you again for your time, your honesty, and for sharing your journey with us today. It's been a privilege learning alongside you at UCLA Anderson, and even a greater privilege to have this amazing conversation. To everyone listening, I hope today's episode gave you a real behind-the-scenes look to what the MBA journey can look like when it's grounded in purpose, leadership, and community. Whether you're considering business school, navigating a career pivot, or simply looking to grow as a leader, I hope you walked away with something valuable today. This has been the very first episode of Lunch with Alex. I'm your host, Alex Szymanski. Thank you for spending your day, and thank you for spending part of your day with us. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who'd appreciate it, and tune in the future for future episodes featuring thoughtful conversations with leaders, builders, and lifelong learners. Until next time, thanks for listening.